Now, let's get a couple of things clear from the off. First, we have already done a list of the greatest cliffhangers in Star Trek. You know, those ones where right at the end it's like, oh no, cut to black. That is not this list, although there will be entries that might seem like they fit on both, but we'll go into those in each of the entries, don't you worry. Now, what we're also not doing here is the final episodes of each particular show. Again, that's another list. So what we're doing here is going through the season finales that absolutely smashed it. Right, does that make sense? Let's find out. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are the 10 greatest Star Trek season finales. Number 10, Hope and Fear, Voyager Season 4. The closing episode in one of Star Trek Voyager's stronger seasons sees a resolution of sorts of the antagonism between Seven of Nine and Captain Janeway. For the entire year, Seven had struggled with the individuality that had been thrust upon her. Here, faced with the choice of returning to the collective, she finally accepts her home among the Voyager crew. The introduction of Arturis may be a bit of a Ray Wise ex machina at this stage in the season, but the performance is solid and the Dauntless is a stellar design, one that returned in Star Trek Enterprise and was the basis for the new Dauntless in Prodigy. It also gave a slipstream drive, something that would serve as crucial plot points in future episodes. Despite the high stakes of the episode, it truly feels like a character piece, focusing on the two female leads of the show. Their chemistry is undeniable, and without treading well-worn ground, it's all the more impressive when we know what was happening behind the scenes at the time. Hope and Fear firmly establishes Seven's choice to stay with her new family, her new collective, and despite the tragedy of Arturis' position, one feels that Seven and Janeway's resolution is the true happy ending of the season. Number 9, The Neutral Zone, The Next Generation, Season 1. The first season of The Next Generation had more ambition than achievement, but it did bring Star Trek back to TV for the first time in over a decade. Heading into 1988, with a writer's strike looming, there needed to be a hook in the finale that would guarantee viewers would return to the sophomore year. Thankfully, The Neutral Zone manages this with gusto. The looming threat by the eponymous region of space, as well as the frozen humans thawing and causing hassle for the crew, combined to set the stage for a wonderfully dramatic return of the Romulan Empire. Mark Alaimo, offering his second role in Trek, as well as his deliberate, slow style of speech, simply oozes arrogance, sitting aboard the enormous warbird. We are back. With that assurance, Starfleet's lives are about to get much more complicated, and the stage was set for many more encounters with these Vulcan offshoots, as well as the initial hints of the Borg storyline. While the season is oft maligned, also by myself, the final episode is one of the true standout finales of the franchise. Number 8, Supernova Part 2, Prodigy Season 1. Star Trek Prodigy's first season came to a close with perhaps more catharsis than anticipated, as the show relocated from the Delta to Alpha Quadrant, and the USS Protostar itself was destroyed. It was a risky move, one that had the chance of falling flat with its main audience. While Prodigy is not a kids-only show, how might they react to hologram Janeway going the way of the Dodo? The show's premise centered around belonging. Dal, Roktok, Zero, Jankum, Gwyn, and Murph are all outsiders and outcasts in the beginning, then grow, with hologram Janeway's help, to become a strong family unit by the season's close. The events of Supernova see them directly save Starfleet, earning them a special dispensation from Admiral Janeway to serve as warrant officers. While the fate of Season 2 remains largely unknown at the time of recording, the few clips that have been released suggest that they are set to serve aboard the Voyager A, accompanied by a very familiar hologram, which seems anathema to where they were in the beginning of the first season. For season arcs alone, Prodigy's debut year smashed it with that finale. Number 7, The Best of Both Worlds Part 1, The Next Generation Season 3. Okay, so here's where we talk cliffhangers. Though this list is largely avoiding cliffhanger endings, we cannot in good conscience leave The Best of Both Worlds Part 1 off this list. While much of its brilliance is served from that incredible final scene, it would be too much of a disservice to the rest of the episode to say that that was its only powerful moment. The opening scene, the confirmation of the Borg, the first attack, the rising tension on board the Enterprise, Shelby, everything in this episode works. Directed with APOM by Cliff Ball and written by Michael Piller. Pillar. There was much uncertainty behind the scenes as well, as both Pillar and Patrick Stewart weren't officially signed on to return in the 4th season. Therefore, Pillar wrote this as a bit of a challenge to whoever would have to write the second part. The joke was on him, he did return and had to wrap everything up. Stewart also signed on, so Locutus had to go. The Best of Both Worlds Part 1 has transcended Star Trek to become one of popular media's most discussed and analysed season finales of all time. There's a reason that every succeeding Star Trek cliffhanger is compared to this one. This is the one that broke the mold. Number 6, Tears of the Prophets, Deep Space Nine Season 6. The 6th season of Deep Space Nine saw the Dominion War truly explode throughout the Federation. While the 5th season finale, more on that later, set the stage, Tears of the Prophets completed several arcs, offered the first true on-screen offensive by the Federation Klingon-Romulan alliance, and saw the departure of Terry Farrell's Jadzia Dax. While the unfortunate details of the behind-the-scenes issues that led to her departure have since become clear, there is little doubt that the death of Jadzia ranks as one of the most shocking, upsetting scenes in the show's entire run. It's actually difficult to rewatch the episode without a growing sense of dread once she enters that Bajoran shrine, but Farrell's performance makes the effort worth every moment. Aside from this, the spectacular Battle of Chintoka, as well as the return of Gul Dukat and Sisko's final scene scrubbing oysters in New Orleans, offer some of the most thrilling, affecting scenes, proving that a season that contained such greats as the sacrifice of angels, Far Beyond the Stars, and In the Pale Moonlight could still go out with a bang. It may have been tinged with tragedy, but Tears of the Prophets was still, in its own way, very much a triumph. Number 5, The Expanse, Enterprise Season 2. The Expanse is a bit of an outlier on this list. While it absolutely deserves to be here, the episode has aged with a bit of controversy as the years have gone on. Airing in May of 2003, less than 2 years after the September 11th attacks, this story very obviously was Star Trek's take on these events. It set the stage for Season 3's Xindi arc, and while Enterprise's arrival in the Expanse probably can be called a cliffhanger, it's the reactions of the crew, and particularly Trip and Archer, which truly sell the episode. Trip's sister Elizabeth is killed in the attack, but this isn't confirmed for a few scenes. Therefore, Trip becomes the stand-in character for those who were desperately searching for news of their loved ones in the hours and days following the collapse of the Twin Towers. While there is much to be said about how the show handled the Xindi arc overall, The Expanse manages to capture that feeling of shock, panic, and devastation effectively. This, coupled with the rise of real-world xenophobia, jingoism, and anti-Muslim sentiment, was a stark departure from Gene Roddenberry's hope for the future, and it was a departure that was handled very, very well. Number 4, A Quality of Mercy, Strange New Worlds Season 1. Star Trek Strange New Worlds brought the franchise away from the serialized storytelling of both Discovery and Picard, returning to the more familiar episodic adventure of the week. Therefore, when it came to the first season's finale, audiences weren't sure quite what to expect. It's safe to say that having 2 Pikes, one slightly older, greyer, and monster maroonier, was unexpected. The episode also served to introduce James T. Kirk as played by Paul Wesley. It would go on to serve as both a soft remake of Balance of Terror, while also solidifying the fact that, despite Pike's affable nature, the Boy Scout-like charm, that he was exactly the wrong captain to be the one facing the Romulans. It serves to help Pike and the audience come to accept the fact that Pike's fate is sealed. However, it manages to balance that with the good that will come from it. We know that he will end up in the chair, as does he. What Pike doesn't know is that, by the time of the menagerie, he will return to Talos 4 and live a life, though illusory, but one of love. If one of the main themes of the show's first season was Pike coming to terms with his fate, then this episode manages to achieve that perfectly, setting the stage for a second season where Pike was free to explore other storylines free of that weight. Number 3, Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2, Discovery Season 2. Star Trek Discovery is a show that has been free from any drama or furious backlash or even discussion. End of entry. Now, once the laughing is finished, there is very much a reason that Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2 ranks so highly on this list. The show, closing out its second year, was faced with how to resolve the story of Burnham and Spock's relationship, Pike's return to the Enterprise, Control's threat to the galaxy, and so many little niggling issues with historical canon. The fact that it largely succeeds with all of these points sets up a sidequel series, closes much of the larger canon complaints, and still offers a fantastic light show to boot, is a testament to the skills behind the camera and the acting in front. Sonequa Martin-Green, Michelle Yeoh, Anson Mount, and Doug Jones all stand out in particular here, with not one of them breaking the high tension of events. The fact that Yeoh, in fact, fact offers some grim humour to the story in her showdown with Leland, offers us some of the most uncomfortable smiles of enjoyment of the season. The third season would then become a soft reboot of Discovery. So if this is both the end of the second season and the spiritual end of the first iteration of the show, then it fires on all thrusters. And Jeff Russo's score deserves a special mention as well for that wonderful soaring tribute to the ship as it blasts into the 32nd century. Number 2, No Small Parts, Lower Decks, Season 1. To completely change the mood, No Small Parts is one of the most fun finales to make this list, with all of the humour that Lower Decks injects into its episodes, along with the arrival of the USS Titan Luna class on screen for the very first time. That moment, with the Next Generation theme blaring, only adds to the excitement of hearing Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis reprising the roles of Riker and Troy respectively. The episode is not without a mix of emotions, as there is a genuine threat in the form of the pack-led clump ships, extreme frustration in the form of Peanut Hamper, and the tragedy of the loss of Shax. Sure, he returned in the second season, but we weren't to know that as he disappeared into a cloud of vapour while Rutherford floated away. What is most impressive, however, is the ability of the episode in barely 23 minutes to cram all of these moments in, yet it never feels rushed or too clumped. Instead, the audience is treated to both a tease for the second season, Lieutenant Boimler aboard the USS Titan, and a cheeky, knowing wink to the audience as Riker discusses visiting the holodeck to spend time with the crew of the NX-01. For a show that, in our opinion, was a massive success on all fronts, its first season went out on the highest of highs, which was a sign of the quality to come. Number 1, Call to Arms, Deep Space Nine Season 5. This episode has everything. From the opening scenes of Sisko watching the latest Jem'Hadar convoy erupt from the wormhole, to the decision to mine the entrance, the standoff with Weyoun, and the eventual attack on the station, there's barely a moment to breathe. On top of that, there is even time at the end to get a sense of the aftermath. The station is crippled, Kira, Odo, and Quark are still aboard, as is Rom and Jake Sisko. The Defiant and the Rataran are rushing to meet the Federation task force, while Dukat smugly settles himself into Sisko's office. The actual final shot, one of the enormous Starfleet Klingon fleet heading toward the Bajoran sector, was a heart-stopping moment. While yes, this does in fact feel like another cliffhanger, the amount of time that passes between this shot and the opening moments of A Time to Stand serve to truly hammer home the threat of the Dominion. For sheer tension, action, exhilaration, and payoff, there is no season finale of Star Trek quite like Call to Arms. Now that's everything for our list. Obviously, we can do sequel after sequel because there's something like 40 plus seasons of Star Trek. So let us know what is your favourite Star Trek season finale in the comments below, and don't forget to get in touch over on social media. You can catch us at TrekCulture on Twitter, at TrekCultureYT on Instagram. You can catch myself at Sean Ferrick on the various socials as well, and of course you can catch our editor Mel on the socials too. You are wonderful, you are awesome, you are brilliant. Make sure that you live long and prosper, and we will see you soon. Thanks.